Okay, folks, it's your buddy Mike Messier. Requested, I believe it was Trilly Tuesday, Truth. Uh, I think they're the same guy, but I could be wrong. But Trilly Tuesday is a performer, a music video guy, and good performer too, who requested that I do a video about the Brian Pillman Dark Side of the Ring, my opinions, and knowing that I have this wonderful Flying Brian tattoo on my leg. Uh, I appreciate that you remember that and you want my opinion. So I just watched Dark Side of the Ring Part Two, and look, I'm not gonna be angry and hyper about it right now. I watched it. It's sombering. It's sobering. You know, having met Brian Jr. for just actually we hung out for about 3 hours, 2 or 3 hours a couple of months ago. Nice guy, and somebody, I think Andre Corbeil, another Mike Messier subscriber, so that's the ultimate babyface in pro wrestling right now is Brian Pillman Jr. And that's probably true. I mean, the guy went through a lot of crap with his family and trying to be positive and come out the other side and learn lessons. And what else can we all do? Now, as far as the actual video, the actual movie, the two-parter, so you get about 90 minutes of material once you cut away commercials. I thought it was pretty great. Um, just splitting hairs a little bit. The guy that played Brian in the vignettes, I thought was a little undersized, meaning that Brian, the actor playing Brian in those uh, those vignettes, was a little small, meaning that he was probably 160 or 70 pounds. And look, it's Brian Pillman had a unique look with the hair and everything, so it would be hard to get a guy that was 220 or 230 possibly to be available to play Pillman. The face was good. I'm just saying that those vignettes made Pillman look smaller than he was physically. And granted, Pillman was not the biggest guy, and that's why he was kind of when he did work babyface, he really was, to me, effective. And I've been debating with, of all people, I believe Michael Monty, who doesn't seem to have much regard for the early Brian Pillman work in WCW. Well, I would greatly be offended by that. And if you watched the Brian Pillman Barry Windham tape fist match from I believe Wrestle War, the original Wrestle War, or was it the original Super Brawl? I get confused sometimes by those two. It might have been the original Super Brawl in May of 1991. The Pillman Wyndham match, tape was excellent. And I was listening to the CONRAD THOMPSON podcast about it, and he was saying that feud had no background, and Jim Ross was saying that they just put Wyndham and Pillman in this tape fist match for no reason. There actually was a fucking reason, which was the War Games. So I guess it was War Games 91, where Pillman got knocked out. Somehow that became a break-off feud with Wyndham and Pillman, okay? And that's what led to the Super Brawl 1 tape fist match with those two guys, Wyndham and Pillman. So I get a little upset when people don't know their history. And I know the history better than Jim Ross, apparently, because I just have a really good memory for this stuff. And that can't be denied by anybody. So, going back to the point at hand, I thought Brian Pillman had a great fucking career. WCW, it was typically the case of he was more over with the fans than he was with K. Allen Fry or Jim Herd or Bill Watts. We know the story of Bill Watts trying to bury Brian and basically trying to reduce his pay. And Pillman said, hey, I'll be the most highly paid jobber you've got, because Pillman refused to take lower money and said, if you want to make me lose matches, I'll lose matches, but I'm not going to take a cut in pay. So Pillman sticking up for himself. Going back to the actual story, the two-parter, I liked it. I enjoyed it. You learn about, Brian's, the five kids, three kids from, three of his own kids, three kids that he sired. Obviously, the two daughters, the sisters, and then Brian Jr., and then the two kids from, I guess, Melanie's previous marriage. And you feel for these kids. And having met Brian Jr. myself, just a little bit of the talked about personally, I can tell you that it's all accurate. What the show represented, it was accurate. It was in alignment with Brian told me himself. So that's all accurate and true. And you'll learn through this show that just because someone's famous, it doesn't mean that they have it easy. We already knew that. I mean, you can look at a lot of famous people; they don't have it easy. But this family, and there's always been these stories of these Brian Pillman memorial tribute shows, and where did the money go from those shows, and so on and so forth. And here's the thing: I mean, I still have, maybe others would disagree, but I still have some sympathy for Melanie Pillman. I think it's going to be tough when suddenly your husband dies, and granted, people contend maybe that they were on the breakups already. Brian and Melanie were not doing the best they could as a couple. But even so, to suddenly, now you're a widow, now you've got 5 kids, put into that situation once again with Vince McMahon, and I'm just debating once again with someone online about Vince McMahon and the merits of their ethics and the lack thereof. But if you needed yet another reason to hate Vince McMahon, the Melanie Pillman interview on the Raw after Pillman died, Brian Pillman died. I mean, God, how many ways can you hate Vince McMahon, or how many reasons do you need? Always looking to exploit humanity, even in death, for a ratings pop. Vince, I'm talking about. Melanie telling us that Vince promised up and down he wouldn't ask her about drugs, and that's the first thing he says. Typical Vince, right? And of course, the apologists will apologize for Vince, the McMarks. Once again, I kind of knew the the WWE, on the flip side, to their credit, did a really nice DVD presentation of Brian Pillman 10 or 15 years ago. It's odd to me that the WWE did a home DVD collection of Brian Pillman, and he's not in the WWE Hall of Fame. Brian Pillman's not. And Rick Rude is in the WWE Hall of Fame, but he never had a DVD. So it's just one of those weird pick and choose things. There's no, who knows. Look, I'm a big Brian Pillman fan, the original and now the junior, but really the original, because to me, he had that fighting spirit. And one thing that can't be denied, they didn't really go into this on Dark Side of the Ring, was Jim Ross always did a great job of getting fucking Pillman over. I mean, he would and to the point of, you knew that every time Pillman wrestled, he was gonna, what was that, the Ed Koch Courage Award, like the Courage Award from the Cincinnati Bengals. Ross would always mention that. Ross would often mention the 9 neck surgeries from cancer, the polyps on the throat. Like, Ross always got fucking Pillman over. I was offended by, my buddy Michael Monty of the Monty and the Pharaoh show saying that Pillman was just not a main event guy, whatever he said, because I get what Monty is saying, what Michael Monty is saying on that. I understand it, but to me, if you look at the Hollywood Blondes, if you look at Starrcade 92, I mean, that's a great exhibition of Brian Pillman's work. Look at Starrcade 92. I think Pillman wrestles 2 or 3 times on that show, at least twice. He teams with Barry Windham against Steamboat and Douglas. And then later on, I believe Pillman's in another match later on that show or something. The Jushin Liger matches, the junior heavyweight title that Pillman got in late 91 with a tournament victory final over Ricky Morton, and then losing at Super Brawl 2, or getting it back over Jushin Liger at Super Brawl 2. He lost it, I think, Christmas night at the Omni. Going by memory, folks. No Googling, okay? No Googling, just memory, okay? Pillman, I think he did have a great career in WCW, and I think as the video shows, The Dark Side of the Ring, this horrible Humvee accident really, as Jim Ross said, literally and figuratively killed Brian Pillman. So he was still alive, for another year and a half or so after that accident, but he was on borrowed time, and it's unfortunate. So that's why you got to drive safe. I mean, I drive in a town. I'm here in Jacksonville, Florida. We all know that. And when I'm driving around, I see a fucking car accident every day. I saw a motorcycle accident the other day. You know, a guy on a motorcycle something happened. I got there after the fact, but he's pulled over and there's 6 people in cars trying to help this guy, calling for help. So I don't know why people can't drive better. I mean, you know, the same thing with Kerry Von Erich losing his foot in that motorcycle. Magnum TA in the Porsche. Adrian Adonis dying in a car accident. Granted, people die in car accidents every fucking day all over the world. But with these wrestlers, I'm surprised. You know, Doug Furnace had a bad car accident with Sid Vicious and LaFon, I believe. So it's just one of those things where these guys put so much miles on the road, especially in the 80s and 90s when they were driving themselves crazy. Now the wrestlers should be grateful. I mean, this pandemic was the best thing to happen to these pro wrestlers because their schedules are so much easier now, and they're still getting paid money. Going back to the show, everyone's kind of popping for Linda Pillman. I can see why. Brian's sister, she seemed like the Rock. You know, she kind of took the mantle for these kids, including the kids that I guess were not even blood related to her. So good for her for that. You know, there was a rumor back in the day, which I think it's been proven not to be true, that Melanie Pillman had some type of relationship with the Ultimate Warrior, and that those 2 kids were somehow the Ultimate Warrior's blood kids that Pillman was raising. And I think that this show didn't go into that, so I guess we can say that that's not true. But I remember there was always that rumor of the Ultimate Warrior and Pillman sharing relations or having relations with Melanie at different times, which I guess we can say that that's not accurate. Reaction, you know, you wanted my reaction. I thought it was good. You know, I thought the Dark Side of the Ring did a nice job. You know, I'm still waiting for the Uncle Elmer's wedding episode of the Dark Side of the Ring. Okay. You know, I'm still waiting for the Bobby Heenan Weasel Suit Ultimate Warrior series of matches to be examined on Dark Side of the Ring. The Jim Cornette throws a fireball at Ronnie Garvin's face episode of the Dark Side of the Ring. The Where Did Abdullah the Butcher Get His Forks episode of the Dark Side of the Ring. But I did appreciate this one. I am looking forward to the Grizzly Smith. You'll see Sam Houston on that one. Sam Houston, who's another Mike Messier, subscribed to Mike Messier YouTube channel alumnus, will be on Dark Side of the Ring on his family. Grizzly Smith, Jake the Snake, Rockin' Robin, Baby Doll, and Sam Houston, who's a good gentleman, a friend of mine. You'll see all those on the Grizzly Smith episode. And it's weird because I'm seeing like so many of these episodes that I have some type of personal connection to. The Ultimate Warrior, obviously, I met the Ultimate Warrior in 2012 and had a nice moment with him, and sad to see, you know. So I think these lessons, if you can, wrestling fans, if you're deeply entrenched in these episodes, what can you learn? What can you feel? Try not to make the same mistakes the wrestlers. It's like what Jim Ross was saying to Brian Jr. Learn from the power, the passion, the intellect, the athleticism of Brian Pillman. Try not to go down the same roads. I mean, for instance, and maybe you guys like this or not, but, you know, I never was inclined to hop on a motorcycle because of Kerry Von Erich losing his foot. So all these guys that think they're tough and room, I ride a motorcycle like it's 1965 or whatever, I never got into that, mostly because Kerry Von Erich lost his foot, and then 6 years later he's putting a gun to his chest and blowing his chest off and killing himself. Maybe that's just me. That's how I interpret the world. So, you know, you try to learn from other people's mistakes. You can learn from your own mistakes, but it's better to learn from someone else's. And it's just sad, you know, with Brian Pillman, he was such a great talent. I personally get offended when people don't recognize his talent or they dismiss it, and they think that everybody that came through the WWF was oh so great. You know what I mean? I just don't believe that. I think that you had to have been a WCW fan, an NWA fan, a real territory wrestling fan to appreciate some of these wrestlers. Because if you grew up with that Northeastern lens, those goggles, or if you are a current WWE fan and you grow up through the goggles of WWE and their revisionist history, you don't know how things really were. You know how things are that Vince McMahon tells you they are. You understand what I'm saying? You grow up with a revisionist mindset that's filtered through the canon of WWE lies, quite frankly, and I won't tolerate that. So now, I guess I'll segue. I was going to do a separate video. I started to watch the Macho Man Savage A&E thing. It was, interestingly enough, I was at a friend's home in Maryland, and I put the TV on, and there was the Macho Man A&E doc, and I watched a few minutes, and I saw that it was really just an excuse to sell Legends action figures, the way that they were having the Jimmy Hart action figure or whatever, or the Hulk Hogan Legends action figure. I'm like, okay, this is an action figure commercial. And I literally turned that off once I got the vibe of that show to put on the Brian Pillman Part 1 of From Dark Side of the Ring. And to me, I'm not going to sit there, and I found out later that the Randy Savage thing, people are calling it a hit job, and it's just another way of WWE burying Savage, and who the hell is Bubba the Love Sponge, and the guy that had his wife, like he set up his wife to fornicate with Hulk Hogan, like they're giving him airtime. That's the WWE's producing this show, or co-producing, so I just don't get it. And for me, I'm being very restrictive with my time. I'm not giving the WWE time off of my life to fill my head with bullshit and crap and lies and their crap and their bullshit. I can do that on my own, okay? So I'm not going to tolerate it. And I've heard that this Booker T thing, someone's online, a Twitter guy saying, hey, I was interviewed for the Booker T A&E thing from WWE, and I talked for several hours. This other guy said this. He talked for several hours about the Booker T Triple H racially charged storyline, and it was all not used, and they just glossed over that whole thing. And that's typical WWE. And I'm debating with now someone on Facebook about it. The Booker T show, why would they not want to show that Triple H storyline? Because it makes the WWE look bad. Because they use racism and racial baiting to suck us in to the WrestleMania 19 storyline. They just kind of, put Booker T in that spot. Triple H needed an opponent. They got Battle Royal. Booker T won the Battle Royal. But then they started adding the cheap heat of racism. And yes, Triple H and Flair played racist in this storyline. And off to the races we went. And we all expected, we being the intelligent wrestling fans or the morally sound wrestling fans, like, okay, they'll pay this off with Booker T pinning Triple H 1, 2, 3 in the middle at Mania 19. Guess what? They didn't. Instead, Booker T gets pinned 1, 2, 3 with he gets the pedigree, and then it's like 20 or 30 seconds before Triple H pins him. And people are still pissed about this 20 years later. And then some folks say, well, Booker T doesn't seem to mind. Well, Booker T is getting paid. Okay? So there you fucking have it, folks. How do I feel about it? I mean, once again, I didn't watch the Booker T A&E biography. Didn't watch the Stone Cold one. I know these stories. I don't need to watch them on A&E to allow them to manipulate and lie and coerce these stories into the way that it didn't happen, okay? Or to whitewash it, so to speak, or to WWE wash it, so to speak. I don't need to have my mind and my memories manipulated. You can't buy my memories, okay? So there you have it, folks. As far as what the fuck else? People are still debating this Booker T Triple H storyline. It was clearly racist. And okay, this gentleman on Facebook, he wants to get famous. I'll give him a little credit. He's saying, well, Mike, what about Flair calling Ric Flair being racist to Teddy Long? That's been revealed by Teddy Long in a shoot interview with the You Shoot series. Well, first of all, I wasn't there, so I don't have any reason to think that Teddy Long's making that up. However, there's no videotape of that because that was behind-the-scenes stuff. So has Flair admitted to it? We don't know. I mean, I saw another wrestling fan tell a story of Ric Flair being kind of racist to his young son, African-American guy, saying Flair was racist to his young son, and then this guy called Flair out on it years later, and Flair felt bad. I don't know the answer. I wasn't there. You know what I mean? But I can tell you the difference of that Flair stories, and the guy is also making Harley Race being racist references, and I'm trying to get to the bottom of that. Is that the Ron Simmons thing on the Clash of Champions, or with Jesse Ventura, that promo? I don't know. I mean, I know that Simmons eventually pinned Vader for the title, and Harley Race was in the corner, so there was a payoff, which was Ron Simmons winning the title. And I don't think Harley Race in that segment used the dreaded N-word. I think he used the B word, okay? Boy. He said boy, which is offensive. It's not as offensive, one might think, as the N-word. However, yes, it's offensive, but the payoff was that Ron Simmons beat Vader for the title, and I was there in person to see it, which I have that video, my memories of that, on the Mike Messier YouTube channel, don't I? And I get to meet Ron Simmons years later and shake his hand and discuss what a great night that was. So the difference being, folks, if you're talking about the difference between the Harley Race Ron Simmons 1992 Vader angle, is the payoff happened that Ron Simmons won the title. Booker T getting pinned 1, 2, 3 is the opposite of the fucking payoff that we expected, okay? Now, as far as the other stuff, as far as Ric Flair being racist and Teddy Long tells the story of Gary Hart, of all people, I guess this would have been like 1989, 1990 era WCW, when Gary Hart was managing Buzz Sawyer and the Great Muta and Terry Funk, and Ric Flair was feuding with Terry Funk and the Great Muta, and all these things were happening. And Teddy Long was kind of segueing from a ref to a manager with the Skyscrapers and then with Doom. I have no reason to think that Teddy Long made up or fabricated those stories. I have no reason to think that. I've never met Teddy Long. I have met Ric Flair, and I have no reason to think that Teddy, and he also mentioned Ole Anderson, that is Teddy Long. So I have no reason to doubt Teddy Long. The difference is the evidence, the videotape of the WWE racism stuff is right there on video, and the other stuff we have no proof. We have Teddy's word, and from what I understand, Ric Flair nor Ole Anderson have ever commented to either admit to or deny those allegations of them being racist assholes to Teddy. So I don't know what to say. It's disheartening. It's sad to hear that. Hey, look, you want sad and disheartening? You know, Steve Austin's just on this Brian Pillman thing. Well, look into the spousal. Did they mention the spousal abuse allegations against Deborah and another female companion of Steve Austin on the Steve Austin A&E biography? Probably not, right? They didn't mention that. So we all, convenient morality. I've got another video on the Mike Messier YouTube channel. Convenient morality. We make excuses and we forget about, or we look past the affronts and the mistakes and the errors and the cruelty committed by those that we like, and we vilify those that we don't like. And so this gentleman on Facebook his name is Mark with a C, I believe. He's trying to make a point to me that I vilify the WWE for their mistakes, whether it's the Owen Hart death, Brian Pillman's wife, widow, being pressured and questioned after, within 24 hours of discovering her husband died. Their deals with Saudi Arabia, their funding of Trump. So the gentleman is trying to make a point that I vilify and I put down the WWE, yet I'm not putting down, I guess, Ric Flair for his racism against Teddy Long behind the scenes, or Harley Race against Ron Simmons. And so my defense would be the Harley Race, Ron Simmons had the payoff of Ron winning the title, and the Ric Flair stuff we don't have proof of. I don't doubt it, what Teddy Long says, but we don't have proof. But yeah, I mean, the overall point, I get your point, but my bigger thing is convenient morality, and also the WWE has a track record, a history of disingenuous storytelling, of moral ambiguity, lack of morality, ethical corruption. We haven't even talked about the Ring Boy scandal or the steroid scandal, so on and so forth. So there you go, folks. Mike Messier. Hey, look, I'm just a guy with my opinion. If you find yourself enjoying 3 hours of Raw last night and waiting 2 hours and 45 minutes for Bobby Lashley to put a full Nelson on Drew McIntyre or whatever happened, if that was what rocked your boat on a Monday night, let it rock your boat. I find that to be pathetic, but if that's what you're into, that's what you're into. That's the type of thing that people like, then you enjoy it. Mike Messier YouTube channel, plenty of stuff. So we've had my Mike Messier dedicated Brian Pillman story response. There you have it, Mike Messier.